Good evening, everyone. Mayor Odom is not present currently, so I will get the meeting started. If I could ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you take the roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Priel.
Present.
Alderman Royal.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey. Alderman Best.
Present.
Mayor Odom.
The one item on our agenda this afternoon is a discussion of our electric rates. Foster, did you have any comments before we ask Mr. Bouchard to?
I appreciate everyone showing up today for this meeting, and we'll go ahead and call Charlie up now so he can jump right into the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Brill, Board of Aldermen.
Good afternoon.
This is a little bit in my face. If you can't hear me, just let me know. I'll adjust it some more. This evening, before you, you have an opportunity to consider setting a public hearing to adjust and amend electric rates in July. So I'm here in support of that and to discuss the issues that are pressuring the utility. Just as a recap, most of what I have to present to you this afternoon we covered in the April 2025 workshop. And I have all of those slides in an appendix. If there's something that you want to see or go back for, we can go through those again. But I don't have a plan on going through all of that again. So basically, as you may recall, Utility Financial Services, Financial Solutions, performed an electric financial study for us. They reported the results of their study to us, and they made recommendations on a rate adjustment to us, and they also recommended that we modernize our rate designs. Also during that meeting, you may recall that I presented a variety of different operational budget updates. I commented and presented on our operating budget for fiscal year 2026, our 5-year capital plan. I presented on our wholesale power supply forecast and our rate plan, and it's a 5-year plan. I made recommendations for a rate adjustment of 3% with an unrestricted PCA, followed by consecutive years of 3% increases, always to be updated annually, as this is a varying issue. And I also recommended modernized rate designs. So considering our rate path going forward, this is what I call the no rate increase plan with Charlie's capital plan. So we don't have any rate increases planned, and Charlie still is asking for his capital because he thinks it's important. And as a result of that, you can see that our debt coverage ratio continues to go negative. The age of the system stays in relatively decent shape, 40 to 50% depreciated. That's because of the capital. Adjusted operating income goes negative in 2027, and our cash balance is also predicted to go negative in 2029, and the days of cash on hand goes negative. So that doesn't work, at least in my opinion, and probably most of your opinion. That's not a good plan. This is what I call the do-nothing plan, and no rate increases. Charlie doesn't know what he's talking about. He's making up stuff on capital. We don't need his capital. Let's live without it and see how we get by. So the debt coverage ratio still goes negative in 2030. The system is now depreciated 75%, up to 75%. Our adjusted operating income still goes negative, and our days of cash on hand approach near policy requirements, and Our cash balances are growing, but I call that an artificial cash plan. We're building some cash, but that doesn't change that we have a need to spend it. And that doesn't go away. So at some point in time, we're going to have to get back into that cash and spend it again, and we're going to be back to the same situation. If I could illustrate an example, it would be like, I need new tires on my car, and I'm going to postpone that purchase because I'm going to save money. I'm going to save the money that the tires cost. Yay for me. And then I lose traction and run into a guardrail. Now I need new tires and I need bodywork. So what did I save? Probably nothing. So what I think is a reasonable plan, not my favorite, but this includes a 4.5% rate increase, a rate path. It provides us a financially healthy plan and the revenue and the capital requirements to move on with our operating expenses as well as our capital. And you can see that the debt coverage ratio stays above 1. Our system depreciation improves to 40 to 50%, again, because we're spending capital. Our adjusted operating income can now pay for our operating expenses and our capital expenses, and our days cash on hand meets our policy requirements and starts to grow a little bit towards what the industry would recommend we have. The 3%, let me back up. That 4.5%, I'm off track.
Go the other
I'm
way.
going the wrong way.
Should be another button for you, Charlie.
Thank you. The 4.5% rate increase includes the PCA, the Power Cost Adjustment Charge that we approved last December, and that has some restrictions on it, including a cap. So that's 4.5% increase with our current PCA and the way it's structured today. The plan I like a little better and recommending is a 3% rate increase over a 5-year track. And this achieves very similar to what the 4.5% achieves. However, the base charges are 1.5% lower to the customer because of the 3% rate increase and not the 4.5%. It also is easier on the customer because future rate changes will then compound more by 1.5% more compounding effect. And you'll see later where I'll show you some comparisons where I think it's better overall for the customer and the utility. And this 3% plan includes removing the restrictions on our PCA. So taking off the 1.5 cent cap and allowing the PCA to be adjusted on a monthly basis. And what I mean by adjusted on a monthly basis, I got to back up just a little bit and talk about currently, since our PCA went into effect in December, we've undercollected $1.6 million in power supply costs. By the end of the year, it'll be $2 million. And it'll be $2 million plus every single year because we're not able to balance the undercollection and our power supply costs. So we need to have that balancing tool in the PCA, and that's what this rate plan shows, and that's what I'm proposing in the 3% rate increase by removing the balancing restrictions. So I'm being a little redundant here, but I had a slide for it anyhow, just to talk about, be clear on my recommendation. It's 42% rate increase, an unrestricted PCA, and that means 12-month adjustment factor where we're balancing the PCA every single month, but we're looking 12 months on a rolling average, 12 months in the rear, and balancing our under-collected costs and recovering it in the next month. As an alternative to that is the 4.5% rate increase with our current restrictions, and that would be for all metered and unmetered rates. Taking a quick comparative look graphically, the 4% rate increase method, you can see that presently we're at 14 cents per kilowatt hour. This adjustment would take us to 15 cents, and by 2028 would be up to about 16 cents per kilowatt hour. Still lagging Duke. On a dollar value, we're at about $143 for our average residential customer, and with the 4% rate increase, that cost experience would be to them about $6.15 this year. And if we did another adjustment the following year, another $6.50, another $6.76 roughly in 2028. Using the 3% methodology, here's where things get a little not difficult to explain, but I want to try to add some clarity. So I added a new slide, a couple of new slides that you may not have in your printed package to help clarify this. But I talked briefly about a 12-month rolling average. I wanted to show you what we did a 24-month rolling average and went back and tried to collect under-recovered power supply costs over the last 12 months. And that would be a 14% or 15 cents per kilowatt hour this year, 16 cents next year, and hovering right around the 16-cent mark in the year 2028. As far as dollars go and the customer experience, they'd go from $143 on their average bill to $156. It's a $13 a month jump. And then the next year, $4 increase to $161. And then finally, the next year, another $4 increase to $165. So if we slow that adjustment factor down to 12 months and allow us to balance that uncollected power supply cost over a 12-month period, it's about 15 cents roughly per kilowatt hour. This year goes up to about 15.5 cents per kilowatt hour the next year, and about 15.9 cents per kilowatt hour the following year. As far as dollars go and the customer's experience, they'd be going from $143 for an average residential bill this year to $150 as soon as this was approved, and then $154 and $158 following. So looking at this in a little bit of a different format, the 4% rate increase with the restricted PCA, you can see that the first adjustment this year, what I'm asking for is a $6.15 average cost increase for a customer over the course of 3 years. And if we continued with that 4.5% rate increase, it'd be almost $19.41, almost $20 over the course of 3 years that they would experience in power cost increase. Looking at the 3% method with the unrestricted PCA, but using the 24-month adjustment factor, you can see that this first year is a $13.30 increase to the cost. Then it levels off because we've been able to collect some of that unrecovered power supply costs, $4.26 the following year, and $4.33 the next year. Total over 3 years, the customer experience would be about almost $22 cost increase over 3 years. The 3% rate increase, using the 12-month adjustment methodology, they'd go from $143.49 to $150.10, the average residential customer, to $6.61 increase. That's less than one Big Mac. And then the next year, $4.26, following year, $4.37. Over the course of 3 years, total adjustment's only $15.24. It's the least of all three options. And it allows us to recover under collected power supply costs. As far as rate modernization goes, I'd like to take the time to talk about our solar rates briefly and recognize the fact that our solar credits to our solar producing customers is undervalued. We haven't adjusted that credit in quite some time. So I'm recognizing that value for solar be adjusted. At the same time, I'm also recognizing that solar community and our solar customers, they want to produce their own solar, they want to consume it, and they want to sell back any excess to the utility. Our current rate doesn't allow them to do that. It only allows them to produce and sell it all back to us. So what I'm proposing in the industry is what we call net billing solution. It's 1 meter, and we have 2 registers in the meter, and everything that they buy from us, they get charged for it, and everything that they sell back to us, they get credit for it, and anything in between they're consuming and they can have themselves. So that involves an energy credit. Roughly right today, if I were to calculate it, or yesterday, it's about 5.7 cents. We would adjust that monthly, recognizing, as I've been saying, our power supply costs change all the time, so I only think it's fair for solar customers to adjust it as often as we can. And then part of that rate would be a grid access fee of $6.31 per kW based on the size of our system. I'm still a little bit in the design process of this. My goal is to get this all wrapped up so it would be in front of you should you elect to have the public hearing in July. It would all be ready for you to adopt, but it's not quite all finished and settled on the net billing solar offering. In order to do that, what I'm thinking right now, and this is still kind of in the works, we have current Schedule 60, which is our renewable resource facility credit, and that's what we call in the industry is buy all, sell all. You have 2 meters. 1 meter is connected to your house, and you buy all of your electricity from us. The other meter measures all of the solar that they produce and they put back onto the grid. They don't get to consume any of it. And that's where the net billing solution provides them the service that they're asking for. So right now I'm thinking we would make the Schedule 60, the buy all sell all rate, obsolete, limit it to our existing customers, recognize that energy credit is still undervalued, so we increase that energy credit to the current value and update it monthly. And then offer those that want to switch from our Schedule 60 to our new proposed rider number 2, that they would pay for that at their own expense and the cost of converting all those wires and changing that system out. So I hope to have that all wrapped up should you elect to have the public hearing and ready for you in July. So in conclusion, I'm asking you for your consideration and making a recommendation that you call for a public hearing to amend the electric rate ordinance to occur on July 8th, 2025, and that will be before you tonight on the consent agenda. And those amendments include a 3% rate increase, an unrestricted PCA, 12-month adjustment factor, adopt rider number 2, which is our renewable energy provider rider, and then make obsolete our existing Schedule 60 renewable resource facility credit. Any questions? I know there's a lot to digest and go through, but some of it we covered before, and I didn't know how deep you wanted to go.
Charlie, my question to you is that with the solar, do you see that forthcoming as a great benefit to the city?
Depends who
or, you know.
We should be indifferent.
Okay.
And we're not quite indifferent today, but if we are able to continue with plans to modernize our rates, it shouldn't make a difference to us whether I'm buying solar or buying power from Nekempa at the cost value of Nekempa, or I'm buying solar from your neighbor at our cost value. I don't want to buy it for any more, and I want to be fair to them, so I don't want to buy it for any less. And the same thing would go with batteries. I should be indifferent. Our rates should be structured so that we can fairly account for their use of the system and their purchase of energy. But we need to make some other adjustments in our rates, and that's what I have planned going forward with rate modernization. But at the end of the day, we should be indifferent.
So are you having a lot of requests from citizens?
Not a lot.
Not a lot?
Not a lot, but we're trying to be thoughtful and on the forefront. We probably lag behind, quite frankly. And I'm just now getting to the point where, we can work on some of this stuff.
Right.
We first had to put in an AMI system. Then we eliminated old archaic street lighting rates and incandescent type of bulbs and got those rates modernized. We've purchased a new billing system. There's a lot of steps that we've taken to get us to this point. And, trying to keep on moving. Did I answer your question?
That answers my question.
Charlie, would you like to cover how many solar customers we currently have?
Around 40.
And when it comes to the unrestricted PCA, what all could be included in that? And I'm curious, would that include a true-up from electricities?
The PCA functions to recover. Let's make the assumption that our base rates are designed correctly and they're recovering all of our power costs. And we know they're not, but let's just make that assumption. And let's make the assumption that in 2020, they were recovering all of our costs, all the costs of our power that we buy, the cost of this conversation, the cost of the lines, the cost of this device that I'm holding in my hand, all of our costs was being recovered by our base rates. That's not the case. We believe that was happening in 2020, and at that time, power costs were, don't hold me to this number, I believe 8.41 cents. So the way the PCA is designed is every month when our costs are above 8.41 cents, the difference between 8.41 and our cost of power this month is what the PCA collects. And it all lags. It all lags because, as you well know, you don't get your utility bills until a month after you consume it. And the same thing goes with me. I don't get my power costs for a month later. I don't have my power costs yet for May. And it's the 10th of June. So I don't know for a month after the fact how much I've over-recovered or under-recovered, and it's all under-recovered right now. So that piece, am I answering your question?
Yes.
And what the restrictions we have on it now is that we can't balance it. So it just tries to collect, but if there's an under-recovery, it doesn't go back and say, add this under-recovery to the next month's bill. And that's what we want to do. We talked about it early on, about going back to 2022 and collecting $3 million of under-collected power costs since that time. I think the board's thoughts were, we don't want to go back that far and collect on our own under-recovery efforts. This methodology keeps it with all in the same year. So we're just going back 12 months and trying to collect that in the next month going forward. Does that make any sense?
I don't know if I missed you making the statement that fluctuation would translate into what costs on the consumer?
The current PCA has been since December, has been averaging 0.005 cents, 0.0050. That's the average monthly PCA since the time it went into effect in December. Under the methodology that I'm proposing and the examples that I put in front of you, using the 12-month methodology, we would in August fix an adjustment factor that looked at the last 12 months, average that out for the next 12 months, and it would be a fixed number. And that fixed number, based on yesterday's power cost, is 0.0033 cents. So 3.3 cents per kilowatt hour. So you add that to the 0.005, and now your PCA would lock in at 0.003, plus the other part would fluctuate a little bit. Your average is going to be probably somewhere around 0.08 cents for your power cost adjustment charge. And we currently have a cap on it right now of 1.5 cents. So your average is going to be lower than your current cap, but when I forecasted this out and I ran models on it, there are going to be some months that you're slightly over the cap that we have now, but other months it'll average out. That you'll be around 0.8 cents.
So you talked about over a year's time, but we're talking about monthly?
Over every month it would be added to the bill, but what we're trying to recover is what happened over the course of the current year. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It's tough to explain, I know. And I'd be happy to sit down with any of you one-on-one and talk about it all day long and show you the math and try to do a better job explaining it, but that's my recommendation.
So, Charlie, I have another question. So, with balancing the PCA monthly, you could keep, that would allow you to use the 3% increase instead of the 4.5?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
I just want to make sure.
What happens if I'm not recovering it in the PCA, we have to build it, it's going to have to get collected by the rates. So rates are just going to have to go up and up and up and up.
Right.
In this 12-month methodology, recovering last year's under-recovered amount based on a 12-month rolling average, after we get through this a year, the under-collection is going to be balanced out. So
And
I
you
do think it's
want-
easier on the customer.
Right, okay. And you're wanting this for a 5-year period?
No, I'm just asking this year for the
This year, okay.
3% rate
Okay.
increase with the unrestricted PCA.
Okay.
I do want to come back every single year and have the same conversation. It's a moving target. Last December, when we had this conversation, I was forecasting a 0% rate increase on our wholesale power costs. And between December and April, it went from 6.5% to 3.5%, and they finally locked in and at 3.5%. And they didn't lock in at 3.5% until the Wednesday before our board meeting, or a workshop that we had in April. So I think I need to come back and look at a rate plan and adjust it every single year with you folks. Right now, today, based on what I know, I think the plan looks like 3% rate increases for the foreseeable future with an unrestricted PCA.
So allowing you to do that, I mean, it would, for future, I mean, it would pretty much keep you at a point where when inflation hits, correct? With costs. If you come back, I mean, if...
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can adjust for all of that.
Okay.
I think my recommendation is that a healthy, financially healthy utility is constantly making regular, small, single-digit adjustments in response to operating expenses, whether it be power supply costs or for operating expenses.
Let me ask this question for Mike. Yeah. So if we have been keeping up and actually, I think it was for the last 9 years, rates weren't increased, we wouldn't be at this point, correct? Somewhat at this point. I know there's a lot of factors involved.
Be a lot of variables.
Right.
We went through a lot of different things with COVID, and the
Right.
governor suspended
Right.
billing and collection on customers to power costs were a little more stable. And fuel prices have now gone up. Inflation went rampant on us. That's why I think it's probably, regardless of what's going on, like I've said in the past, the utility, is subjected to federal policy, state policy, weather, sales, the cost of fuel. There's so many different factors, temperature outside, that impact our business and our response to that. Right now, my forecast on wholesale power supply costs, Duke Energy Progress and Duke Energy Carolinas are trying to merge. They're saying that's going to happen in 2027. Power costs in the west, Duke Carolinas, is less than it is here in Duke Energy Progress in the east. We want their prices. The west doesn't want our prices. So how's this going to shake out? Don't know. That's why I just think we need to come back every single year on a regular basis and just always talk about what's a 5-year capital plan, what's our financial situation look like, what does a rate path look like, and then make those sound decisions. And if I can dive a little bit deeper back into rate modernization, the whole goal there, right now, our rates are archaic, and they're based on what I call volumetric rates. So all of our costs are bundled into the price of power, energy. And they're spread out to all of the consumers. I think what rate modernization looks like is passing on wholesale costs directly to the customer. We don't need to mark those up. We don't need to make money on it. But I have to design a rate that will line up with how I'm buying power, pass that cost on directly to our customers. So those energy prices and those power prices on their bill go down. So where do I collect the rest of it? That's what I would call fixed costs. And that's the cost of my trucks, my lines, this conversation, and that goes into your base charge, and it becomes a fixed charge. And customers can then count on that, and those using lower amounts of energy, their bill is going to decrease because they're just getting passed through the wholesale cost. But I'm not quite there yet.
I thank you for the information, and each time you come before me, I grasp a little more. I tilt my hat to you and your staff.
Well, thank you. They do a lot.
Wow.
Any other questions? Charlie, in your capital program, and I need a little help in terms of terminology. I know we have some equipment in the system that is old, very expensive to replace. What am I talking about? I mean, I don't want to, compressors, condensers, there's some...
different words, but all of the above. So, substation, which is capacity. We need a new substation to support our current loads as well as forecasted load growth. In addition to supporting those, the substation will also support reliability and resiliency because we'll be able to reroute power to distressed areas that we can't do now because I don't have enough capacity. In addition to that, that's what I call the substation project. That's the County Line Road project. Currently, our Glen Burnie substation is our oldest substation. It has 3 transformers in it. They're all over 50 years old.
That's what I was missing, the transformer piece of that.
Correct. Then,
What, what are we doing to address
I'm asking for money.
the ultimate replacement of these transformers?
I'm asking for a rate increase, and I'm asking for revenue bonds.
So you're building in,
Correct. If we
hopefully
go back,
some money that can be set aside for the eventual replacement.
not set aside, pay the debt service on,
Okay.
so we can get started right away. I'm not trying to save
But
for
we're not, presently, we're not in a position where we would be allowed to go out and borrow money.
I don't think anybody would lend us money right now based on what I just told you in our debt coverage ratio and our cash on hand. I think they would laugh at us.
So when would you anticipate that the utility is going to be in a position that we could then look at going out and borrowing the necessary funds to start replacing?
I'll ask the finance director to help me with this the day after you approve it.
I've had conversation with our financial advisors, and we've done some planning. We've been working on this for quite some time, and we need to get the revenues coming in and building that cash reserve up, so that, and then when they see that these have been increased, even though we may not be in the perfect position, we will be able to show that we have the revenues coming in to be able to afford it down the line. So this is really important to get moving along now. Otherwise, it's just going to keep holding us back. Right now, end of May, we were at 39 days cash on hand. So we're not moving the needle that much with the increases that we had this past year.
Kim, what is and Charlie, you can answer this as well. Our policy states how many days of cash on hand is recommended?
90.
90 days, and then I believe at the workshop, Charlie, your goal was to get that days of cash on hand to what?
9?
I believe it was-
120.
Yeah, I'd like to go higher than that, but I think minimum industry recommendation is 120.
And so we have to go through the local government commission for revenue bonds, and so they're going to look at the financial health, see if we can actually afford this. Right now, we cannot. That's why when we went through the budget process and the budget workshop, could not recommend at that time hardly any of the capital, because we did not see the revenues coming in to cover that. So obviously, we do have to look at rate increases to be able to get to a point, because electric utility, as Charlie has said time and time again, we have an infrastructure that we have got to take care of, and there are some replacements that are coming. And I would love to say that once the board approves something, we could get started on capital projects immediately, but it's going to take a little bit more time. So we need to start getting in that right direction.
And just using the transformers as an example, what's the cost today
I'm budgeting $6 million.
for one? Or
No, to do that whole job, to replace all three. And we're going to go from a 3-transformer design to a 2-transformer design.
Okay. And the time frame that you would think it would take from placing an order before it's received?
From soliciting bids to time of it being energized, no less than a year and a half. I push real hard, and I ask real nicely the manufacturers to get our transformers first in line. Might have a little leverage if I can order 2 at a time. Might have a little more leverage if I could order 4, because I want to do the County Line Road substation too. That might give me some priority. There's only so much manufacturing space with these type of transformers. But the transformers would be ordered, and the rest of the major equipment would be ordered very early on, has long lead times. The rest of the site work is going to take place, and things will be made ready, so when the transformers come in a year and a half, whenever that delivery time is, they're ready to be set, taken off the trailer up and craned up and put in place, and then it's just a matter of commissioning them and connecting them and getting the substation in service. So that's not lost time if we're managing it correctly. On your issue with capital costs, another pressure that's working on us is, it goes back to this power cost adjustment charge, is load management. And for every 1 megawatt that we can lower during the peak hour of the month, we save $22,000 per megawatt per month. I'm allocated 19 megawatts of generation. So if I ran 19 megawatts of generation, I can lower my power supply cost by 19 times $22,000 a month. I don't have 19 megawatts. I have 12. And of the 12, it's all at least 20 years old, and I can maybe get 5 to 7 megawatts running on any particular month. And it's getting worse because it's getting older. And the less is my ability to dispatch that generation and put it online, our power costs go up $22,000 per megawatt every month, which the PCA will recover. So we can play this game a couple different ways. We can invest in new generation, and I would estimate that at $1 million a megawatt, so I need about $20 million to replace our generation fleet. Or can hold back on that $20 million investment and just let our PCA collect it, and it is what it is.
On the substation, you are pursuing that grant, or were we not?
No, we lost that grant. We were denied.
But that was last year, wasn't it?
I applied 2 years in a row, and we were denied both years, and it's not being offered right now.
Oh, it's not being offered?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not pursuing anything other than debt service.
So without that kind of a program available to at least apply for, we're looking at having to foot the full bill for construction of the substation somewhere.
Correct. And we've made progress on it. We've purchased the land. We've purchased the easements that we need. We have an agreement and have a lot of the engineering done on the interconnection to the transmission system with Duke. This is all because of capacity. And when the substation's all finished, there's supposed to be a feeder and interconnect between the new substation and the Bryce's Creek area, which we call the Country Club Road feeder. However, currently, we've expedited that construction of that feeder because the Lewis Farm substation is overloaded and Blue Water Rise continues to grow. And I'm out of capacity. So I'm trying to build 3 miles worth of power lines down County Line Road and through the state forest to serve the backside of Blue Water Rise. And right now I'm held up on a state, or on a U.S. forestry permit. I've got it all the way down to the forestry department. As soon as I get that permit, then I'm ready to go in, and I'll pick up the backside of Blue Water Rise.
So, Charlie, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into this.
What's that?
I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into all
Oh,
this.
she's don't.
So if a catastrophic event happened right now and the electric department would be in trouble,
We're going to work.
okay,
I'm just out of contingencies.
okay.
why I'm building an emergency line from Bryce's Creek to Blue Water Rise. And ultimately, that circuit is fed from Lowe's Boulevard substation, Trent Road. I'm taking it all the way out to Blue Water Rise because the circuit that's feeding it and the substation that it's on can't handle anymore.
That's because you said of the amount of kilowatts it's
During
supplying.
peak conditions, yes.
Okay.
And last December it tripped off and I had to move customers. And I've got more houses being built in Blue Water Rise, and I've got Thrive coming in to Carolina Colors. I've got a lot of density that's filling in. We need capacity.
Well, I don't want a rate increase, but I know it's needed because I don't want our citizens to be left in the dark. I mean, just look at this past Saturday, the storm that come through here, and I think it was like 2,200 people got knocked out. I mean, we all know that this is a dire need. So I just, feel that we as a board, I hope that we're listening to you and come to some plan of reconciliation and I'll get on board with this and let's get these rate increases.
Do we need to slow down construction over in that area?
I don't want to give it up.
I don't want to give it up either, but I don't want everybody to lose power because we don't have enough to supply all the houses.
I think we have an obligation.
Okay.
I assume we do. I'm not stopping until somebody's telling me to stop.
What's your thoughts?
Well, Charlie and I have had a conversation on where Duke provides energy. Could they provide to Blue Water Rise if needed? And so we've had our conversation about that.
It's a good load for us. We don't have to go very far, and Duke's not there.
It's a good load, but then again, we've got to build a substation.
If we give it all up right now, it still doesn't change that Lewis Farm substation is overloaded.
Okay.
I still have areas within that footprint, within Carolina Colors, that I have to serve that haven't been built on yet, all the way up and down through James City. So just giving up one area, it just doesn't solve the problem.
And Charlie, to build the substation, timing for that, how long would it take? You mentioned
About a year and a half to 2 years to get it online. And
approximately 2 years for a substation, approximately a year and a half to change out transformers at our existing substation per project.
Can we do them both concurrently? I sure would try.
And the total cost for that if it was done concurrently?
I have to double check my capital plan, but if you look on this slide and you see the bonding, including issuance fees, that's the capital plan. 28,000. I think, I have to double check my capital plan, but I think it is both the substation and the Glen Burnie transformers. The number actually looks right. In the first year, and then the following year is generation, changing a substation at Trent Road, relocating an extra transformer at Trent Road to Lewis Farm, and then the third year is some improvements on undergrounding critical conductors, and then some conductors that we have out there, some feeders, are undersized. So they once were feeders that I could move power around. Now I can't. They're too small. So correcting that as well. That's in the third year. And that slide that we have before us, if we were to get this rate plan, the first year of the rate plan approved, I think it proves, I think the financial study will prove that we could afford the debt service on both the operating budget, as well as the debt service on that $28.9 million.
When do you project we can do that, did you say?
We need the rate, as soon as we get the rate increase. Kim's been working on it, she says, and I think everybody in the lending community needs to be reassured that are we doing a rate increase or we're not?
Okay.
We're on hold right now, waiting to see what we can project for revenues before we even think about filling out an application for the revenue bond. So we have to kind of lay that out, do some financial planning with or without this, just to see where we're at.
I'm like Barbara, no one wants to have rate increases, but we all want electricity. So we've got to move to do something.
I don't want to be insensitive towards it, but for the average customer, using 998 kilowatts per hour, the average residential customer, it's less than a Big Mac. Big Mac's $8.70 these days.
Yeah, but that's for the value meal, Charlie.
No, it's not. That's the Big Mac.
I'm just kidding.
So,
Any other questions of Charlie?
Do us tonight?
What's that?
Do they need for us to do anything?
So this is for information. So tonight, of course, on the consent agenda, there is a call for a public hearing to discuss this to move forward.
okay. So action will be taken at July's meeting
That's
after
correct.
public hearing.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, if you vote to have the public hearing, then I have to publish what those amendments would look like,
Okay.
and then wait until the date of the public hearing, and we can discuss it again.
So we have to vote tonight to have the public hearing, correct?
Yes, and that is on the consent agenda for tonight's meeting.
Okay.
In the meantime, if anybody wants to sit down with me and go through this in more granular detail, would love to do it. I can talk about it all day long.
Well, I rely on you to supply us with what we need and Kim with the dollars. And we all know this is a no-brainer. We got to do something. I mean, we can't just keep on, as a famous Mayor Pro Tem say, kick the can down the road on this. We got to do something, and we need to do it soon, considering you said it's going to take 2 years for everything to be complete and in place for the substation. Yeah.
I think if I can say, just to remember that cash is at $8.8 million on a $66 million budget. We had to cut capital because we don't have the means to pay for it next year if we don't see something change. We had to write up a finding at audit last year because the electric fund had such, I think they estimated 16 days on hand at the time, cash on hand. So we do have to start seeing some change, some revenue coming in.
And
Anything else, Charlie?
there was some mention in the past about, I didn't receive the direction to give a rate design to match Duke. But we did a little bit of work. And if we were to match Duke's rate for this year, it would be a 14% rate increase with an unrestricted PCA. That's what I would need to get you to do.
Say that again?
I'd need a 14% rate increase this year with an unrestricted PCA to match Duke's. I'm proposing 3% with an unrestricted PCA.
Let me ask you one more question. Why did, I know at the budget session you were speaking on, I think it was 4.5%?
Correct.
Okay. So what, So what made you go back to 3? Because
I
leniency?
I was always the 3.
Okay.
The consultant recommended, he proposed, they laid out both options for us.
Right, right.
They, and myself, you know, you folks weren't crazy about the PCA when I first rolled it
No,
out?
don't say us folks, because I'm all for this.
Okay.
Okay, let me make that correction, okay?
I correct myself. There was some concern about the PCA. And that's why we went in with the restrictions, we got it started. And I still don't know if this unrestricted has concerns or not. I won't know that until we vote, or until there's more discussion about it. So, but that's, you know, when you look at this layout here on this screen, you know, I can't help but favor the 3% unrestricted with the 12-month adjustment. It's easier on the customer, and it meets our needs.
And if with that 3% unrestricted PCA, would that put you back at what, how, with gaining that for a year, whatever, or monthly or yearly, would that put you back at the number of days that's kind of required, or would that put you at 60, or would that put you at 90, or what would that put you at?
I gotta remember how to go back on this thing. I believe we're back this year up to about 94 days.
Wow. And didn't you say we're currently at 36, Kim?
Yes, 39 days.
39 days. Oh, okay. That's all I have.
Remember, we're under collecting $2 million a year now, currently on power supply costs, so.
That's
Well,
it.
if there are no other questions or comments, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn the work session.
Second? All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Charlie.
You didn't vote on it?